Today we are going to discuss about types of skull fractures. So basically the skull fractures are divided as fractures of vault of skull and fractures of the base of skull. So what are the fractures of vault of skull? They are fissured fractures, depressed fractures, comminuted fractures, and diastatic fracture, pond fracture, perforating fracture, gutter fracture, and cut fracture. Okay. So, in this fractures of base of skull, we will learn about fracture of the anterior cranial fossa, fracture of the middle cranial fossa, and fracture of posterior cranial fossa, and ring fracture. Okay, ring fracture, hinge fracture or transverse fracture, motor or motorcyclist fractures, and longitudinal fractures. So, we will cover this in brief in this video. So, let's start this video. So coming to fractures of vault of skull, one is fissured fracture. Fissures are like longitudinal, like so they are linear. Okay, they are linear hairline or crack fractures. So due to general deformation of the skull, these are most common type of fractures. Forcible contact with broad hard surface like hammers, okay, like stones, okay, like that. Blows with an object that is with a relatively broad striking surfaces. Okay, then depressed fracture, this is also known as fracture a la signature or signature fracture or mirror image fracture. So what will happen, there will be local deformation of the skull, depression will be there. Okay, so fractured part will be driven inward into the skull cavity. So it is caused by sharp weapon and small and with small striking surface. Okay, there will be that fracture fragment will be driven inward into the skull cavity. Okay, if you observe in x-rays like that, you will observe some fragments in the skull cavity. Those are fractured or fragments. Okay, coming to this comminuted fractures, this is also known as crushed or stellate or crazy paving fracture. So the bone is broken into several pieces of different sizes. Okay, the bone in these fractures will be broken into very different pieces of different size. Okay, so this may be occurring as complication of depressed fracture. So now coming to as non-depressed commutative fracture, which appears in the form of several fissures. Okay, then there will be like a spider, many lesions you will see, it appears as a spider web. Okay, there is no depression, but it appears as spider web or mosaic pattern, mosaic fracture or spider web fracture. So this diastatic fractures. So at last we will discuss in diagrammatic way also if possibly. So diastatic, what you understand by diastatic means the suture lines, the suture line fractures means these are occurring in young people or in children. The sutures won't be fused tightly in those them. So the small subtle force may lead to dislocation of the means the suture will get divided into like this, means separation. The bones will get divided because there is no tightening of the suture, means or closure of the suture. Then like this is suture in this middle. So these are two bones, they are like dividing. Okay, this is known as diastatic fracture. Fracture along the skull sutures. So in seen in children and young adults like up to 30 years, because the sutures are not like very close end, okay, in them. So usually they may occur usually along the sagittal suture. Okay, between the parietal bones there will be sagittal suture. So in that we will see this fracture. Okay. Coming to pond fracture, it is indented or ping pong fracture. Okay, simple dent will be seen on the skull. Inner table means skull is mainly divided into inner table and outer table. Okay, so inner table there is no such lesions and anything won't be occurring in the inner table. It is intact. Outer table cracks will be seen. Okay, seen in skull of infants. Okay, why it is seen in the infants means due to forceps delivery. Okay. And there is no internal injuries will be seen. Okay, looks like a dent in the ping pong ball. Okay, coming to now fractures of the base of the skull. Base of the skull, what we talk, fractures of anterior cranial fossa, fractures of middle, fractures of posterior cranial fossa, and ring fractures, will longitudinal fractures. Coming to fractures of anterior cranial fossa by direct impact or counter coup injury. What do you mean by counter coup injury? Coup means at the site of the force or at the site of the impact you will see a injury. But counter coup is exact opposite. Okay. So injury to the roof of orbit will occur. So roof of orbit, it may that blood will leak into the orbital lesion, and it may appear as raccoon's eye or black eye. Usually loose areolar tissue may also in the scalp also will see this black eye. Okay, this is known as panda eye. It's the blood collection. Okay. If both eyes which are involved, we'll see spectacle hematoma. Okay, is how it will be, both orbits are looking like raccoon eyes. So escape of CSF and blood through the nose. You observe in the anterior cranial fossa, if there is any fracture, there will be leakage of CSF and blood through the nose. In case of middle cranial fossa, mostly through the ear, the CSF and blood leakage will occur. Okay, because if petrous part of the temporal bone is fractured, there only no ear is located, then the CSF will get leaked to the ear. Okay, direct impact behind the ears or crush injuries of the head. These fractures of middle cranial fossa may occur. Then fractures of posterior cranial fossa. So then what we will see posteriorly? What we will see? Mastoids you will see. You will see that foramen magnum. If you turn the skull like this, you may see. You will observe this. And okay. So bruising may occur behind the ears over the mastoid process. Okay, this is known as Batten cell. We had already seen this Batten cell before also in post like yeah, in before chapters. Okay, then transverse fracture is also known as hinge fracture or motorcyclist fracture. Skull will be split into two halves in the middle, and it creates a hinge. Okay, next ring or annular fracture, fissured fractures along the foramen magnum, due to the fall from height. Usually the patient may fall on his buttocks or on the back, or heavy blow on the top of the head. Okay, now coming to penetrating and perforating fractures. So when you will see this, means it is caused by firearms. During the bullet may penetrate into the skull. Okay, perforation means it may go and it may come from outside. Means one is entry and one is exit. Both are seen in the perforation. So am I correct? Perforation. Yeah, penetration means it is penetrated. Perforation means it is coming out on us. So weapon passes through the both tables of the skull. The size and shaft cross section. Okay, cross section of the weapon. Okay, size and shape due to the according to the cross section it may appear the size and shape. Fractures with entry and exit wound, perforating fracture. Entry wound, outer table will be punched out. How you understand entry? First of all, entry you remember, outer table out, so punched out lesions. Inner table there is beveling, and exit wound, inner table reverse you understand, inner table will be punched out and outer table will be beveling. Gutter fracture is due to partial thickness of the outer table of the skull, which may be removed by a tangential force from a gutter. Okay, can be caused by a bullet with striking obliquely and not penetrating the skull, accompanied by irregular depressed fracture of the inner table of the skull. Okay, irregular depressed fracture will be seen in the inner table, and outer table you will see partial thickness. Okay, so a cut fracture due to the sharp cutting weapons like chopper. So this is all for today. I hope you understand skull fractures well. Thank you.